Most people believe confidence is something they have to earn. They tell themselves, I'll be confident when I become successful. I'll be confident when people respect me. I'll be confident when I stop making mistakes. But that belief is the very reason they never become truly confident. They have unknowingly handed the ownership of their confidence to the outside world. If success creates your confidence, failure can destroy it. If praise builds your confidence, criticism can break it. If other people's approval makes you feel valuable, then their rejection has the power to make you question yourself. This is not confidence, it is psychological dependence. And psychological dependence can never produce dangerous confidence. Dangerous confidence begins the moment your self-worth stops asking permission from the world around you. The first psychological barrier separating ordinary people from dangerously confident people is the need for validation. Every human being enjoys appreciation, but most people secretly depend on it. They constantly look for signs that they are accepted, admired, or approved of. They measure their value through compliments, attention, social media reactions, or the opinions of family, friends, colleagues, and even strangers. Their emotional state rises when they receive praise and falls the moment they face criticism. Without realizing it, they have allowed other people to become the judges of their identity. A dangerously confident person refuses to live this way. They understand that the moment another person's opinion begins controlling your emotions, that person quietly begins controlling your life. This need for approval is not a weakness you were born with. It is a psychological pattern built over years of conditioning. From childhood, most people are rewarded when they meet expectations and corrected when they disappoint others. Slowly, the brain begins connecting acceptance with safety and rejection with danger. As adults, this conditioning continues without being questioned. Many people no longer ask themselves, is this what I truly believe? Instead, they ask, will people agree with me? Every decision becomes filtered through the fear of judgment. They avoid speaking honestly because someone may criticize them. They hide their ambitions because success may attract envy. They remain silent because disagreement feels emotionally risky. Their life becomes a performance designed to protect approval rather than express authenticity. A dangerously confident person breaks this conditioning by realizing that approval is pleasant, but it is never necessary for self-respect. Think about how many opportunities disappear because of imagined judgment. Someone refuses to start a business because relatives might laugh if it fails. Another person never approaches someone they admire because rejection feels unbearable. Others spend years staying in unhealthy relationships simply because they fear being alone. None of these decisions are controlled by reality. They are controlled by anticipated opinions. The human mind often creates emotional prisons long before any real obstacle appears. Dangerous confidence destroys these invisible prisons because it no longer treats imagined judgment as a reason to stop acting. It understands that fear of criticism has prevented more dreams than criticism itself ever has. One of the greatest psychological traps is believing that universal approval is possible. The mind convinces itself that if it behaves perfectly, speaks carefully enough, and avoids upsetting anyone, everyone will eventually accept it. But human psychology makes this impossible. People evaluate you through their own experiences, beliefs, insecurities, expectations, and emotions. The same decision will earn admiration from one person and criticism from another. The same personality will attract some people while pushing others away. If your confidence depends on satisfying everyone, your confidence will constantly collapse because human opinions are naturally inconsistent. Dangerous confidence is born when you stop chasing impossible approval and begin respecting your own principles more than changing public opinion. This does not mean becoming arrogant or refusing to learn. Insecure people reject criticism because they fear it. Dangerously confident people examine criticism because they are not controlled by it. They ask one simple question, is this feedback true? If it helps them grow, they accept it without damaging their self-worth. If it is driven by jealousy, misunderstanding, or projection, they let it go without emotional struggle. Their confidence remains stable because it is connected to self-awareness rather than constant validation. They are willing to improve, but they refuse to surrender their identity every time someone disagrees with them. Notice how people who possess dangerous confidence behave in difficult situations. They do not desperately explain every decision, hoping everyone will understand them. They do not panic when someone dislikes them. They do not abandon their values just to avoid temporary discomfort. Their calmness comes from psychological independence. They understand that respect earned by pretending to be someone else is fragile, while respect earned through authenticity becomes lasting. Because they no longer fear losing approval, they become remarkably difficult to manipulate. Guilt no longer controls them. Criticism no longer defines them. Rejection no longer stops them. Their confidence is built on something the outside world cannot easily take away. The greatest shift happens inside the mind. Instead of asking, how do I make people believe in me? They begin asking, do I believe in myself enough to keep moving even if nobody else does? That question changes everything. It transfers power from the crowd back to the individual. Confidence is no longer borrowed from applause or destroyed by silence. It becomes a personal decision repeated every day through consistent action, honest self-evaluation, and unwavering respect for one's own values. This is what separates ordinary confidence from dangerous confidence. Ordinary confidence survives only while conditions remain favorable. Dangerous confidence survives criticism, rejection, failure, misunderstanding, and isolation because its foundation exists within, not outside. The moment you stop allowing the world to decide your worth, you become psychologically free in a way that most people never experience. And once your confidence no longer depends on approval, there is only one obstacle powerful enough to challenge it: the fear that has been silently controlling your decisions all along. Fear has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. Most people believe they lack confidence because they are afraid, but that is not the real problem. The real problem is that they have misunderstood the psychology of fear itself. They wait for fear to disappear before taking action, believing confidence will magically arrive first. But dangerous confidence is built in exactly the opposite way. Fear never disappears before action. It weakens only after repeated action. The people who appear fearless are rarely born that way. They simply understand something that most people never learn. Fear is a prediction, not a prophecy. It is the brain imagining danger before reality has even had a chance to speak. The moment you understand this psychological truth, you begin developing the kind of dangerous confidence that very few people ever experience. Your brain was never designed to make you confident. It was designed to keep you alive. Thousands of years ago, hesitation protected human survival. Assuming the worst often prevented fatal mistakes. That ancient survival system still exists today, but the world has changed. Instead of warning you about wild animals or physical threats, your brain now treats rejection, embarrassment, criticism, and failure as if they were life-threatening dangers. Before speaking in public, asking someone out, starting a business, changing careers, or expressing an unpopular opinion, your mind begins creating catastrophic scenarios. It tells you that people will laugh, reject you, judge you, or remember your mistakes forever. None of these events have happened yet, but your body reacts as though they already have. This is why fear feels so convincing. The brain cannot always distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one. Dangerous confidence begins when you stop treating every fearful thought as undeniable truth. One of the greatest psychological mistakes people make is believing that confident people simply experience less fear. In reality, confident people often feel the same emotional discomfort as everyone else. The difference lies in interpretation. Ordinary people see fear as a stop sign. Dangerously confident people see fear as evidence that they are approaching something meaningful. They understand that the strongest fear usually appears right before significant growth. Instead of asking, what if I fail? They ask, what will happen if I allow fear to decide my future? That single shift transforms fear from a prison into a compass. Instead of running away from discomfort, they begin walking directly toward it because they recognize that fear often guards the doorway to personal transformation. Notice how fear quietly controls everyday decisions. Someone has an idea that could completely change their life, but never acts because they imagine being criticized. Another person remains in an unhappy job because uncertainty feels more frightening than unhappiness. Someone else stays silent during an important conversation because they fear looking foolish. In every case, the decision was not made by logic. It was made by anticipation. The brain created an emotional movie about the future, and the person obeyed it without questioning whether it reflected reality. This is why fear becomes one of the greatest enemies of dangerous confidence. It convinces intelligent people to surrender opportunities they never even attempted to pursue. Another psychological trap is perfectionism. Many people tell themselves they are simply waiting for the right moment, the right skills, or complete certainty before taking action. But beneath perfectionism often hides fear wearing a respectable disguise. Waiting to become perfect feels productive because it protects the ego from possible failure. If you never act, you never have to face criticism, but there is a hidden price. Every delay teaches your brain that fear deserves obedience. The longer you postpone action, the stronger fear becomes. Dangerously confident people understand that confidence is never created through endless preparation alone. It is created by proving to yourself again and again that you can survive uncertainty. The human mind also exaggerates the importance of other people's opinions. Psychologists often describe this tendency as the spotlight effect. People naturally believe everyone is paying far more attention to their mistakes than they actually are. You replay one awkward conversation for days while the other person has already forgotten it. You hesitate to take a risk because you imagine everyone watching your every move, when in reality, most people are too occupied with their own insecurities to analyze yours. Dangerous confidence grows the moment you recognize this illusion. You stop living as though you are standing on a stage under constant judgment and begin realizing that your greatest audience has always been your own mind. Every courageous action sends a powerful message to the brain. When you face a fear instead of avoiding it, your mind begins collecting evidence that you are more capable than it originally believed. This process gradually rewrites your internal identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who waits until feeling ready. You become someone who acts despite uncertainty. That identity is the foundation of dangerous confidence because it is built on experience rather than imagination. Every difficult conversation you have, every calculated risk you take, every challenge you willingly face becomes proof that fear does not deserve authority over your life. This does not mean becoming reckless or ignoring genuine danger. Dangerously confident people do not deny fear, they educate it. They separate realistic caution from psychological exaggeration. They prepare carefully, think strategically, and evaluate risks honestly, but they refuse to let imagined disasters become permanent excuses. Their decisions are guided by values and long-term vision rather than temporary emotional discomfort. That balance makes their confidence both powerful and sustainable. Eventually, something remarkable happens. Fear no longer disappears completely, but it loses its position as the leader of your decisions. You begin understanding that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear become your identity. Every time you move forward while your mind is predicting failure, you weaken fear's authority and strengthen your own self-belief. This is what makes confidence truly dangerous. It is not loud, emotional, or arrogant. It is the quiet certainty that fear may speak, but it no longer gets to decide. And once fear no longer controls your actions, you naturally stop feeling the need to defend yourself, because people with dangerous confidence understand that constant explanations are often another hidden form of insecurity. The fastest way to recognize an insecure person is not by how quietly they speak or how nervous they appear. It is by how desperately they feel the need to explain themselves. Every criticism demands a defense. Every misunderstanding requires a long justification. Every decision must be approved by someone else before they can feel at peace. They believe that if they can simply find the perfect words, everyone will finally understand them. But the opposite usually happens. The more they explain, the more they communicate uncertainty. Dangerous confidence follows a completely different psychology. It understands that your value is not determined by how successfully you convince everyone to agree with you. A dangerously confident person knows that not every accusation deserves a response, not every opinion deserves attention, and not every misunderstanding deserves an explanation. This quiet certainty is what makes their confidence so powerful. Think about why people over-explain in the first place. It rarely comes from confidence. It comes from fear. The fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being disliked, the fear of losing someone's approval, the fear that if people think badly of them, their value somehow decreases. This is why over-explaining is often a hidden form of validation seeking. Instead of trusting their own intentions, they become emotionally dependent on other people's interpretations. They feel responsible for controlling how everyone sees them. But here is the psychological truth that dangerously confident people understand. You can control your actions, but you can never completely control another person's perception. The moment you stop trying to manage every opinion, your confidence becomes far more dangerous because it no longer depends on something impossible to control. Human psychology makes this even more interesting. People naturally respect certainty more than desperation. When someone constantly defends every decision, others begin wondering why so much defense is necessary. Excessive explanations often create more suspicion than silence ever could. Imagine two people making the same decision. One calmly says, "This is what I've decided," and moves forward. The other spends 10 minutes explaining every reason, apologizing, and trying to convince everyone they made the right choice. Which person appears stronger? Which person seems more certain? The difference is not intelligence. It is psychological confidence. Dangerous confidence does not seek permission to exist. This does not mean becoming cold, arrogant, or refusing to communicate. There is a significant difference between healthy communication and emotional justification. Healthy communication explains because it adds clarity. Emotional justification explains because it seeks acceptance. A dangerously confident person is happy to clarify facts when necessary, but they refuse to beg for understanding from people who have already decided not to understand. They recognize that some individuals ask questions not because they seek truth, but because they want control. Endless explanations only give those people more opportunities to criticize, manipulate, or create confusion. One of the greatest psychological traps is believing that if you explain yourself well enough, everyone will eventually respect you. Reality rarely works that way. Some people misunderstand you because they lack information. Those people deserve honest communication. But others misunderstand you because misunderstanding benefits them. It allows them to judge you, manipulate you, or maintain their own beliefs. No amount of explanation changes a mind that has already chosen its conclusion. Dangerously confident people recognize this difference. They invest energy where understanding is possible and refuse to waste emotional strength where misunderstanding is intentional. Notice how criticism affects most people. One negative comment can erase the emotional impact of 10 compliments. They immediately begin defending themselves, replaying conversations, trying to prove that the criticism was unfair. Their mind becomes trapped in an invisible battle for approval. But dangerous confidence changes this entire pattern. Instead of reacting emotionally, it asks one simple question: is there truth in this criticism? If the answer is yes, the criticism becomes an opportunity for growth. If the answer is no, it becomes someone else's opinion, not a definition of your identity. This psychological discipline prevents criticism from becoming emotional control. Another reason dangerously confident people explain less is because they understand that actions always carry more authority than words. Anyone can promise, defend, justify, or persuade. Very few people consistently demonstrate their character through repeated behavior. The strongest reputation is never built by speeches about integrity. It is built by living with integrity